Hi there, mini wargamers, and welcome to another episode of Austin's Benchmark with me, Austin. And today I just wanted to take some time at the beginning here to answer a few of the questions from previous posts. I have two vlogs that I have right now with a couple of questions on them. And if you posted a question recently, and it was probably between when I filmed this and when this one gets posted, just post it on the new one, and feel free to ask any questions about painting or terrain making or wargaming or hobby or anything in general. It doesn't even necessarily have to be completely connected to wargaming, but let's try and stay on that general topic. So let's jump right on into some of the questions here. Got a lot of comments, but only a handful of questions. It looks like you guys are actually pretty interested in seeing a sculpting tutorial. I'll have to talk to Dave about that and just make sure that's okay with him, and we'll get that cleared, and hopefully I'll be able to put something together. I'll have to brush up a little bit on some of the finer points of sculpting an entire miniature, but I can certainly go over a lot of the smaller stuff that you guys would probably use more, like for conversions, reposing arms, doing the green stuff work there, creating tubes and pipes and all kinds of other stuff for science fiction miniatures, or sculpting weapons to do custom things for your lords and heroes and fantasy, or for any sci-fi game. Let's see here. The question from Howling Wolf. I'd like to start working for an independent miniature store here in Holland, and I would like to start painting and constructing terrain for them. Now, how much should I ask as an hourly rate? 10 euros, which is about $13 US, or is that underselling myself? I'm a decent painter now. Any suggestions? Here's what I suggest. You've got to put a price on your time, and I know that's exactly what you asked me for, but what you want to do is really look at some of the factors in your area, because I'm not familiar with prices of things in Holland. Like, the difference between US prices on things and prices in Australia are outrageously different. Some things in Australia are just bank-breakingly expensive, like Games Workshop products in Australia for some reason are about twice as expensive as they are anywhere else, and that's already expensive. So twice the high expense of Games Workshop, which at their normal, US, Canada, UK prices, I think they're worth it. I buy plenty of it. And but I don't know what the price of living or cost of living is in Holland, but look at what your average job pays, just something menial, not skilled, like working at a fast food restaurant, being a server or a waiter, and honestly, I'd shoot for doubling it. Here in the US, the minimum wage is somewhere hovering around, and it's been a long time since I've actually looked at that, I think it's like $7.50, $8, something like that. Double it, and ask for somewhere between $15 and $18, or 15 and 16. I can't do math. But yeah, look at what the average low wage is, and then double it. I think that as long as you are expedient in making your terrain and you're producing something that your local hobby shop wants and that people want to come to see and play with, they are really excited about playing on the tables because your terrain is just that awesome. I'd say, as long as you're not gouging them with hours, like, taking 40 hours to do one piece of terrain, unless it's an entire board or something. I think that, anywhere between $15 and $20 an hour is a very reasonable price for that, especially if you're doing high quality stuff. Now, to get your foot in the door, you may want to edge closer to the 15 and just say, hey, look, I want to start off with this. If things really pick up and people are liking the terrain and everything, and I can get a little quicker about it, would you give me a raise later on? Is there a potential for a raise later? If you're comfortable with the prices that you gave me here, about 10 euro or 13 US dollars an hour, I don't know. Don't sell yourself short. Don't. It's really difficult to get them to pay you more for doing the same thing later, unless you're really showing them something that they hadn't. I mean, unless you're going above and beyond and showing that, it's hard to get a raise. So if you're already a fairly decent painter or modeler or terrain maker, I'd aim for something a little higher than average. So the next question. Let's see. Oh, P3 Ace, I guess. Spelled with a 3 on the end of the ace for the E. Regarding the Hellbrute cost, apparently they printed every non-English edition with 100 points cost, so they're just adjusting the cost to reflect the same value worldwide. Okay, that's good to know. I thought that they were, for some reason, tweaking the Hellbrute's cost 5 points for, I don't know, cost balance, which seems strange because 5 points is really pretty inconsequential in most normal-sized 40K games. I think I figured that out already from somewhere else, but in fact, I may have looked at this post when you posted it some weeks ago and saw it there. Let's see here. From Nightly NZ. Hey Austin, thank you for your suggestions, and I have purchased a clay shaping tool. Questions: what was your first army? What was your first army you collected, and what was the motivation behind choosing that army? Can't speak. Okay, that's kind of a tough question to say. The first army that I started collecting was actually Dark Eldar. Now, the motivation behind that was one of my friends had a whole bunch of the old starter kits that were Dark Eldar versus Space Marine, the ones that had the land speeder in the starter kit. He had bought, I think, 2 or 3 of them, so he just had boatloads of those warriors. So I was looking to get into that, started purchasing a couple things here and there. There were a couple of little mom and pop hobby shops around here at the time. And a lot of the Dark Eldar stuff seemed to be marked down, so I was just happily buying it up at a lower price than I expected when I found out that they had actually discontinued the army. And I said, okay, fine. You know, I'm just going to set all this stuff to the side. I kept it around. I just boxed it up and said, well, you know, we'll see what happens with these models later. So then I thought to myself, okay, well, what else looks good? So just aesthetically, I chose a Tau. And that was the first army I actually started playing. And the reason behind that was I liked the aesthetic. I thought that the battle suits looked really cool. They were very modular and lots of weapon options. I love the kits. I still think that those are some of my favorite kits to put together in the game, just because there's lots of cool weapon options and you can really modify them with where the weapons are mounted on the bodies, shoulders, arms, even, you know, where they are on the arms. Anyway, really enjoyed that army. Trying to think of the progression there. Well, you just asked about the first army, so those were the 2 first armies that I bought a bunch of Dark Eldar, found out that they weren't really a playable faction at the time, and maybe I was mistaken, maybe I got bad information, but I found that the models, once I bought up that initial wave of stuff that was cheap and on clearance everywhere in my area, that it was hard to find. You just couldn't get it anywhere, except for maybe eBay finding secondhand stuff. So, let's see, what else do we have? Looks like Avlane saying the same thing that P3 Ace was saying about the 100-point cost. Let's see here. Pirate Monkey asks, you mentioned Full Metal Alchemist, so my question is, do you like Brotherhood or the original series better? And I like the idea of sculpting videos. I had some green stuff and I have been experimenting with it, so it'd be nice to learn some good pointers. Okay, so the question in the middle about do I like Brotherhood or the original series of Full Metal Alchemist better? I honestly have really only watched Brotherhood. I've seen a few episodes of the original, but for some reason, I think I just got confused at some point. I started watching the original, walked away from it for a while. I don't remember what distracted me, probably schoolwork at the time. And then when I came back to it, I think I found it on, I can't remember, I found it streaming somewhere online and started watching it, not realizing, like I'd only watched a few episodes of the original, forgotten all the details except for basically what the characters were. Started watching Brotherhood and not realized that it was a separate series altogether. So I really haven't watched the original series. I plan to, I just never have time to really sit down and watch a whole lot of anime, mostly because I won't watch the dubbed anime versions, so I have to watch. And really, the reason I get to watch as much TV as I do is because I'm kind of listening to it while I'm painting, and it's easy to do that with something in my native language. But if I have to watch for the subtitles, I just can't do it right now. So let's see what else we got. Davy Dite. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Sorry, Davy Dite. It's all one word here. Austin, that's great. Chaos and Dark Eldar, my two armies. Let me guess, you have Fantasy Skaven as well. That would be even better. Actually, I do. I have two fantasy armies. One is Skaven and one is Vampire Counts. So you guessed it. We are apparently choosing very similar armies. Though, to be fair, I've played almost every single 40k army there is at some point. I don't know, that's not true. I've played about half of them. So I've got a pretty wide target to throw at. Let's see, what else do you say? It would be great to see you give some Dark Eldar love, because as much as I love Chaos, I fear that they will be all over the internet for the foreseeable future. Could you give some advice on painting Dark Eldar skin? I find it very difficult to get a nice balance between looking too dirty and too powdery white. Thanks. Okay, so this is how I paint my Dark Eldar flesh. Now, if you're talking about the normal, like witch flesh or the Kabalite warriors or something like that, what I usually do is just take an off-white, like an ivory or something that's just not quite stark white. And if I'm working really quickly, I'll use just a flesh wash over that. Try and water it down a little bit just so that it's not too pinky and bright. I'm just trying to give it a really pallid look. So just a little bit down in the little crevices. If you want them to look really dead or like almost zombie-like, really deep dark pallor, or I guess light pallor is what I'm talking about. But you'll want to tone those reds back to more blue colors. So you could do more of a light purple wash, and that will give them more of a deathly look. On the flesh for some of the mutated things, like the Racks or the Grotesques or the new Talos paint engine that has all the skin exposed. Did I say Grotesques? I think I did. Okay, anyway. I usually go with that same ivory, like something just barely off-white, something nice and bright, and then I'll use a red wash over it, something typically fairly glossy. If you use the, whatever the red one is from the Citadel line right now, it's like something crimson, it's like Karenberg Crimson, I don't know. Anyway, I hated that they changed all the names. It was just silly. They should have just added new ones and left the old ones with the same names. But anyway, that's beside the point. That's a discussion for a different day. Just doing a wash of that over it gives it this fleshy look, but almost like raw flesh. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Almost translucent. Kind of like pinky raw chicken is what I guess it ends up being, but it's got more red to it, like there's blood in it or something. I don't know. So I hope that helps. For the normal troopers, either ivory and then flesh wash. You can do a dry brush over it, or try and do a little bit of wet shading over the top. Or if you want them to look a bit more deathly or dead, just pale, you can add a little bit of blue to your red, or just take a purple wash. That Druchii Violet, I think, is the name of the new Citadel one. And for all of the ones that are big and muscly and gross, I like to use a red wash on them, just to make them look a little bit more, I don't know, monstrous, because that's the best way I can describe it. Okay, so let's see, where's the next question? Questions. Okay, more about sculpting videos. Can't wait to see your first bat rep. Me neither. I am really looking forward to actually making a bat rep for you guys. Let's see here. Sure you've done this before, but some simple tips on brush care would be cool. I'd be happy to do a tutorial on this. I feel like there's not a whole lot to it. I'll give you a few basic rules here, and then if this spawns into something bigger, and you guys are really excited about learning more about the ins and outs of brush care, I guess. I mean, there's not a whole lot that I do. Number one, always clean it with clean water. Number two, water down your paints. Do not jam lots and lots of right out of the pot paint into your brush. Now, let me preface this with the fact that I'm not talking about the junker brushes that you're just going to do dry brushing with, or you're slathering on paint on primer to a piece of foam terrain. This is like your detail brush, the ones that you want to keep in pristine condition. So clean with clean water. Seems pretty obvious. Water down your paint so that it's not just gummed up with all kinds of stuff. 3, use soap, specifically brush soap, and I can show you what that looks like. Actually, if you give me 1 second, I'll grab some. Okay, so this is a puck of brush soap. This is the Masters brush cleaner brand, I guess, brush cleaner. Here's the cover for it. Oh, there we go. And this is what the actual inside looks like. It's just soap in a little dish, and it's actually a little bit wet. And you'll just sort of wipe your brush around in there when it's wet, and then run it under the faucet. You can actually reform the point of it if you leave a little bit of the soap in the brush, and it won't hurt it at all. You just wash it out at the time you're getting ready to paint. It just helps it protect it a little bit. And then I guess the last thing is no brush lasts forever. Just know that. There will be brushes that will be ruined beyond repair, and you got to get a new one. You'll have to do that a lot less if you buy a quality brush. You can buy, your craft store sack of brushes that look like these. They're just pretty much junk. They're good for putting a whole bunch of whatever down at one point. I mean, you can do some dry brushing with them. You can put glue down on bases. You can do terrain work with them. But you're not going to be painting miniatures with them. And if you do get the small ones that are good for miniature painting, they're probably going to last you for 3 or 4 miniatures, and then it's time to toss them. But actually, there are other things that you can do with your brushes once they're done. In fact, in one of our live shows with Sean from Blue Table Painting recently, he actually talked about stripping them down like caribou and using every part of them to do something. So, you got your decent brush, you're doing detail work with it, it gets ruined, you use it for dry brushing now, and then when it's just even too frazzled for dry brushing anymore, you can cut it off at the ferrule and use it as a flight stand for something. That's kind of a cool idea, but I had never really done that. Though there is one other thing that these are really good for, and I can actually, I may try and work it into a tutorial at some point, but it's not really enough material to actually do a full-blown thing on. So if you've got your brush here and it's totally destroyed, you can just rip out all of the bristles and you can reshape the ferrule. The ferrule is the metal part here. Reshape it so that instead of being a flat, hold on, instead of being a flat metal piece like this, you can sort of squeeze it this way and open it up so that it makes a rectangular shape, and you can use it to press into foam and make brick shapes. So you can use these as stamper tools once they get too ruined to use as actual brushes. And on goes the cycle of using every part of the brush. In fact, you could probably do that and still do what Sean was talking about, cut off the end of the handle and use it as a flight stand. So yeah, that's some basic tips. If you buy a decent brush, you'll have to replace it much more infrequently. In fact, the curve on that is quite steep. If you get really cheap synthetic brushes, you might get 2 or 3 minis out of it. If you buy some of the nicer synthetics, I think some of that is called Taklon, or some of the natural ones. I think Red Sable is a natural one. You'll probably get a few more, a dozen, 2 dozen. And then there's the Quantum Leap Forward with Klinsky Sable, and I can't say enough good things about Klinsky Sable. Let's say you pay $5 for Sacco brushes, and it lasts you for, you got 10 brushes in that bag, and they each last you for 5 miniatures. I mean, that's being generous. So that's 25 minis that you just did. You spent $5. I've had the same Raphael Klinsky Sable brush, and I've painted literally hundreds of miniatures with it now. It is not worn out. If you take care of them, they'll last you a very long time, but there will come a day when that brush wears out and it's time to get a new one. But let's ballpark it here. 300 miniatures I painted with this one brush. If I was doing it with the cheap brushes, it was a $15 brush, which is pretty high for walking into pretty much any craft store, looking at even the best ones they've got there, and they're only maybe $5 or $6. Any one of those brushes is probably only going to get you 10 to 20 miniatures tops. So for the cost of 3 of those brushes, which would have gotten you at the most probably 60 miniatures done, you're getting 4 or 5 times the miniatures painted. So it's just something to think about. Brushes are definitely a place where you get what you pay for. So let's see here. More on the Hellbrute correction. Let's see here. Another question from Howling Wolf. Watched your movie Airbrush Everything Part 1 of 5 intro, and there you talked about airbrushes. What's your opinion on the Games Workshop airbrush? Any good? Good for price? Cheers. Okay, so let me tell you about the Games Workshop airbrush. It is not an airbrush. It is, no matter how much they say it's an airbrush on their site, it is actually a high pressure, low volume gun. It is not an airbrush. It is an external mix, which some airbrushes are, but if I didn't explain that in the Airbrush Everything series, external mix is the bottom of the barrel. And I don't mean to insult anyone who has an external mix brush, but they are the least, what's the word I'm looking for here? Least precise, least reliable brushes out there, in my opinion. Every good quality airbrush on the market is an internal mix, which means that instead of having the nozzle where the paint comes out here and then a piece that just comes out around, like you've got your air source here that like couples around it and air flushes over the tip from one direction, it just sprays out because there's a vacuum created right at the tip. You want all of that stuff internal, because just trust me, external mix brushes are not going to be as good or precise, and they're typically more like just a spray gun, which, don't get me wrong, if you're looking for something to base coat or even do terrain with, the Games Workshop brush, which I have not personally put my hands on one yet, they may do the job. I don't know how much one of those airbrushes is. Let me take a look real fast, see if I can just whip out some numbers here. But if it's any more than $20, it's too expensive. And let me tell you why. Because anything that brush can do, you can get a better airbrush probably for cheaper elsewhere. So let's see. Painting and tools. I think it's under here somewhere. Nope. Can't seem to find it. Citadel tools? Maybe it's under tools? There it is, Citadel spray gun. Okay, so they don't call it an airbrush, it is actually called a spray gun. So, okay, so it's $33, and I'm going to show you something else that I bought for about $15, and I'll let you make the decision as to what you think. I'll be right back. Let me grab this thing. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. This is all anodized aluminum and steel, and here's our paint cup. Screws on the side here. So we've got a very nice, very hardy looking piece of machinery here, as opposed to the plastic spray gun from Games Workshop. This is half the price, and it'll hold probably 4 or 5 times the amount of paint. It hooks up to just about any compressor. You can put a standard compressor hose on it, and this thing will last you forever. And if it ever breaks, you buy another one, and you're still spending less money than one of the Games Workshop spray things. Okay, and another big thing is that the Games Workshop spray gun has no flow control, so you have no way to control how much paint is coming out at a time. This, on the other hand, has a variable trigger, so you pull back a little bit of paint comes out. You pull back a lot of paint comes out. You can also adjust the nozzle on this so that it's a fan going this way or a fan going like this way out, or any direction in between. You can buy these at Harbor Freight. If you go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot or any other home improvement store or professional painting store, you're going to find these, but they're going to be like $70 or $80. Harbor Freight is a company in the US. You may be able to order from Canada or the UK. I don't know what shipping would be like anywhere past that, but they are super cheap and they have lots of great tools. I'll try to remember to put the name of it in the description section, but the name of the company, one more time, is Harbor, like as in ships in a harbor, Freight, as in, you know, a big crate, like shipping something by freight. Harbor Freight. Just do a search for them online and you'll find it. So let's see, other questions.